Hi guys, welcome back to the Law of One Raw Material. We are on book 3 and this is part 4. And this next session starts off with Carla and how she's doing. And I'm going to leave this part in because it leads right into using crystal energy and also the workings of the pyramids. And we're going to be pretty much finishing up how the pyramids function, what they were used for. Now, Carla's psychic attacks, like I completely relate to what Carla is going through because last year I came under severe psychic attacks and I was able to get rid of them. But then as soon as I started this work again and started posting videos, I came under attack again, pretty severely this time. A few days ago, I woke up and I went to go brush my teeth and I couldn't open my mouth enough to even brush my teeth. I had to massage my jaw open. It completely locked up and the front of my tooth was chipped. And I was just like, what in the hell is going on? And then I came to realize that I came under a severe psychic attack when I was sleeping. And there are some negatively polarized entities out there that really do not want me to share this material. They do not want me to teach. And I come under psychic attacks. So the last few days, I've had to really work on clearing some energies and putting protection on myself. I should have been better prepared for it. I should have known that they would all attack me once I started doing this work again. But I'm not going to give up the work. I'm going to keep going. And I think I can get a handle on what they're doing. And so in this next session, Carla talks about, for the same reason she came under psychic attack. And they started talking about healing the damage that had been done to her using crystal energies, and then it kind of led right into the pyramids. And I just want to say, like, Ra already stated that the time of the pyramids is over, but this group really wanted to know how they worked. They really wanted to know if they can build their own pyramid and activate it to do healing work. Now, that's fine, but the thing is, you have to remember, Ra is a collective, okay? So it's like a group of positively sixth density entities that are together. They don't separate themselves. So during the time where the pyramids were built and used, it wasn't just Ra. It wasn't just one person, one entity that was here. It was a team, right, that built the pyramids and activated them. And they needed to use crystal energy to activate them. Now, crystals are so incredibly powerful, but we are just starting to understand the power of crystals. Like during Atlantis times, Lemurian times, crystal energy was used for many things, including powering up huge amounts of energy for devices and for healing. And the thing is, crystal energy also needs to be coupled with consciousness. Now, to give you examples, like our brains, the gray matter inside our brains, the composition that's inside that organic material is actually the same composition of many crystals. So we have crystals in our brains, and that holds memory and it powers up our bodies, for all the electrical systems in our bodies and run our nervous system. And it starts in our brain. And we also have like tiny little bits of that same crystal energy material in our hearts. And the medical community does know this. Like they say we have like little tiny bits of brain matter inside our hearts. That's how our hearts can function so well, even though a person is brain dead. No, they can't breathe on their own. A machine would need to breathe for them. But people that are brain dead, their hearts can still beat on their own. So this gives you an idea about the tiniest microscopic crystals, even in our brains and our heart, are incredibly powerful. And when you listen to this next session, you can you can tell that Ra is trying to tell them that you don't need to do this and to use your discretion if you're going to try to use a pyramid, because it is powerful and it's not really the work for third density entities. Like, remember, Ra has pretty much had anywhere from 70 to 150 million years of practice doing this work. So it's just like like to me it's like you want to build your own pyramid and throw some crystals in there and try to and try to do some healing. It would be okay, we're going to do some brain surgery today, but I've never done it before, but I read the book, so I think we're good. It's like that. You don't want to. It's a bit of an overkill trying to do this work in third density. So you can hear Ra trying to, give them some warning about like they want to answer questions about how the pyramids work, but you be careful. You can hear that in them. So enjoy this session. There's a couple really important parts that we'll get into, but let's get into it. Here is part 4 for the Law of One raw material.
The Law of One, Book 3, Session 57, June 12, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the One Infinite Creator. We communicate now. Questioner, first, could you give me an indication of the instrument's condition, please? Ra, I am Ra. This instrument is under a most severe psychic attack. This instrument is bearing up well due to replenished vital energies and a distortion towards a sense of proportion, which your peoples call a sense of humor. This attack is potentially disruptive to this contact for a brief period of your space-time. Questioner, is there anything in particular that we can do in addition to what we are doing to alleviate this attack? Ra, I am Ra. There is nothing you can do to alleviate the attack. The understanding of its mechanism might be of aid. Questioner, could you tell us its mechanism? Ra, I am Ra. The Orion group cannot interfere directly but only through pre-existing distortions of mind-body-spirit complexes. Thus in this case, this entity reached for an heavy object with one hand and this miscalculated action caused a deformation or distortion of the skeletal muscular structure of one of this instrument's appendages. Your aid may be helpful in supporting this instrument in the proper care of this distortion, which is equivalent to what you call your post-operative state when bones are not firmly knit. This instrument needs to be aware of care necessary to avoid such miscalculated actions, and your support in this state of awareness is noted and encouraged. Questioner, is there anything that we can specifically do to alleviate this problem that is already existing? Ra, I am Ra. This information is harmless, thus we share it though it is transient, lacking the principle but only offering a specific transient effect. The wrist area should be wrapped as in the sprained configuration, as you call this distortion, and what you call a sling may be used on this distorted right side of the body complex for one diurnal period. At that time, symptoms, as you call these distortions, shall be reviewed and such repeated until the distortion is alleviated. The healing work to which each is apprentice may be used as desired. It is to be noted that a crystal is available. Questioner, which crystal is that? Ra, I am Ra. The flawed but sufficient crystal which rests upon the digit of this instrument's right hand. Questioner, would you tell me how to use that crystal for this purpose? Ra, I am Ra. This is a large question. You first, as a mind-body-spirit complex, balance and polarize the self, connecting the inner light with the upward spiraling inpourings of the universal light. You have done exercises to regularize the processes involved. Look to them for the preparation of the crystallized being. Take then the crystal and feel your polarized and potentiated balanced energy channeled in green ray healing through your being, going into and activating the crystalline regularity of frozen light, which is the crystal. The crystal will resound with the charged light of incarnative love, and light energy will begin to radiate in specified fashion, beaming in required light vibrations, healing energy, focused and intensified towards the magnetic field of the mind-body-spirit complex, which is to be healed. This entity requesting such healing will then open the armor of the overall violet-red ray protective vibratory shield. Thus the inner vibratory fields, from center to center in mind, body, and spirit, may be interrupted and adjusted momentarily, thus offering the one to be healed the opportunity to choose a less distorted inner complex of energy fields and vibratory relationships. Questioner, should the crystal be held in the right hand of the healer? Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. There are 2 recommended configurations. The first, the chain about the neck to place the crystal in the physical position of the green ray energy center. Second, the chain hung from the right hand, outstretched, wound about the hand in such a way that the crystal may be swung so as to affect sensitive adjustments. We offer this information realizing that much practice is needed to efficiently use these energies of self. However, each has the capability of doing so, and this information is not information which, if followed accurately, can be deleterious. Questioner: would an unflawed crystal be considerably more effective than the flawed one that we have now? Ra: I am Ra. Without attempting to deem the priorities you may choose, we may note that the regularized or crystallized entity, in its configuration, is as critical as the perfection of the crystal used. Questioner: does the physical size of the crystal have any relationship to the effectiveness in the healing? Ra: I am Ra. In some applications concerning planetary healing, this is a consideration. In working with an individual mind-body-spirit complex, the only requirement is that the crystal be in harmony with the crystallized being. There is perhaps a lower limit to the size of what you may call a faceted crystal, for light coming through this crystal needs to be spread the complete width of the spectrum of the one to be healed. It may further be noted that water is a type of crystal which is efficacious also, although not as easy to hang from a chain in your density. Questioner: placing the end of this pencil on my navel, would the point of it then represent the place where the crystal should hang for proper green ray? Is this position correct? Ra: I am Ra. We attempt your measurements. From 2 to 5.4 centimeters towards your heart is optimal. Questioner: using this piece of wood then, I would determine, from my navel, the position to be at the top of the piece of wood. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: how does the healing that you just told us about relate to the healing done in the King's Chamber in the Giza Pyramid? Ra: I am Ra. There are two advantages to doing this working in such a configuration of shapes and dimensions. Firstly, the disruption or interruption of the violet-red armoring or protective shell is automatic. In the second place, the light is configured by the very placement of this position in the 7 distinctive color or energy vibratory rates, thus allowing the energy through the crystallized being, focused with the crystal, to manipulate with great ease the undisturbed and, shall we say, carefully delineated palette of energies or colors, both in spacetime and in time-space. Thus the unarmored being may be adjusted rapidly. This is desirable in some cases, especially when the armoring is the largest moiety of the possibility of continued function of body complex activity. In this density, the trauma of the interruption of this armoring vibration is then seen to be lessened. We take this opportunity to pursue our honor duty, as some of those creating the pyramid shape, to note that it is in no way necessary to use this shape in order to achieve healings. For seniority of vibration has caused the vibratory complexes of mind-body-spirit complexes to be healed to be less vulnerable to the trauma of the interrupted armoring. Furthermore, as we have said, the powerful effect of the pyramid, with its mandatory disruption of the armoring, if used without the crystallized being, used with the wrong intention, or in the wrong configuration, can result in further distortions of entities which are perhaps the equal of some of your chemicals which cause disruptions in the energy fields in like manner. Questioner: is there currently any use for the pyramid shape at all that is beneficial? Ra: I am Ra. This is in the affirmative if carefully used. The pyramid may be used for the improvement of the meditative state as long as the shape is such that the entity is in Queen's Chamber position or entities are in balanced configuration about this central point. The small pyramid shape, placed beneath a portion of the body complex, may energize this body complex. This should be done for brief periods only, not to exceed 30 of your minutes. The use of the pyramid to balance planetary energies still functions to a slight extent, but due to Earth changes, the pyramids are no longer aligned properly for this work. Questioner: what is the aid or the mechanism of the aid received for meditation by an entity who would be positioned in the so-called Queen's Chamber position? Ra: I am Ra. Consider the polarity of mind-body-spirit complexes. The inner light is that which is your heart of being. Its strength equals your strength of will to seek the light. The position or balanced position of a group intensifies the amount of this will, the amount of awareness of the inner light necessary to attract the in-streaming light, upward spiraling from the south magnetic pole of being. Thus this is the place of the initiate, for many extraneous items or distortions will leave the entity as it intensifies its seeking, so that it may become one with this centralized and purified incoming light. Questioner, then if a pyramid shape is used, it would seem to me that it would be necessary to make it large enough so that the Queen's chamber position would be far enough from the King's chamber position so that you could use that energy position and not be harmed by the energy position of the King's chamber position. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. In this application, a pyramid shape may be smaller if the apex angle is less, thus not allowing the formation of the King's chamber position. Also efficacious for this application are the following shapes: the silo, the cone, the dome, and the teepee. Questioner, do these shapes that you just mentioned have any of the effect of the King's chamber at all, or do they have only the Queen's chamber effect? Ra, I am Ra. These shapes have the Queen's chamber effect. It is to be noted that a strongly crystallized entity is, in effect, a portable King's chamber position. Questioner, then are you saying that there is absolutely no need, use, or good in having the King's chamber effect at this time in our planetary evolution? Ra, I am Ra. If those who desired to be healers were of a crystallized nature and were all supplicants, those wishing less distortion, the pyramid would be, as always, a carefully designed set of parameters to distribute light and its energy so as to aid in healing catalyst. However, we found that your peoples are not distorted towards the desire for purity to a great enough extent to be given this powerful and potentially dangerous gift. We, therefore, would suggest it not be used for healing in the traditional, shall we say, King's chamber configuration which we naively gave to your peoples only to see its use grossly distorted and our teachings lost. Questioner, what would be an appropriate apex angle for a teepee shape for our uses? Ra, I am Ra. This is at your discretion. The principle of circular, rounded, or peaked shapes is that the center acts as an invisible inductive coil. Thus the energy patterns are spiraling and circular. Thus the choice of the most pleasant configuration is yours. The effect is relatively fixed. Questioner, is there any variation in the effect with respect to the material of construction, the thickness of the material? Is it simply the geometry of the shape, or is it related to some other factors? Ra, I am Ra. The geometry, as you call it, or relationships of these shapes in their configuration is the great consideration. It is well to avoid stannous material or that of lead or other baser metals. Wood, plastic, glass, and other materials may all be considered to be appropriate. Questioner, if a pyramid shape were placed below an entity, how would this be done? Would it be placed beneath the bed? I'm not quite sure about how to energize the entity by placing it below. Could you tell me how to do that? Ra, I am Ra. Your assumption is correct. If the shape is of appropriate size, it may be placed directly beneath the cushion of the head or the palate, upon which the body complex rests. We again caution that the third spiral of upward lining light, that which is emitted from the apex of this shape, is most deleterious to an entity in overdose and should not be used overlong. Questioner, what would the height be, in centimeters, of one of these pyramids for best functioning? Ra, I am Ra. It matters not. Only the proportion of the height of the pyramid from base to apex to the perimeter of the base is at all important. Questioner, what should that proportion be? Ra, I am Ra. This proportion should be the 1.16 which you may observe. Questioner, do you mean that the sum of the four base sides should be 1.16 of the height of the pyramid? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner, by saying that the Queen's chamber was the initiatory place, could you tell me what you mean by that? Ra, I am Ra. This question is a large one. We cannot describe initiation in its specific sense due to our distortion towards the belief understanding that the process which we offered so many of your years ago was not a balanced one. However, you are aware of the concept of initiation and realize that it demands the centering of the being upon the seeking of the Creator. We have hoped to balance this understanding by enunciating the law of one, that is, that all things are one Creator. Thus seeking the Creator is done not just in meditation and in the work of an adept, but in the experiential nexus of each moment. The initiation of the Queen's chamber has to do with the abandoning of self, to such desire to know the Creator in full that the purified and streaming light is drawn in balanced fashion through all energy centers, meeting in indigo and opening the gate to intelligent infinity. Thus the entity experiences true life or, as your people call it, resurrection. Questioner, you also mentioned that the pyramid was used for learning. Was this the same process or is there a difference? Ra, I am Ra. There is a difference. Questioner, what is the difference? Ra, I am Ra. The difference is the presence of other selves manifesting in space-time and after some study, in time-space, for the purpose of teach learning. In the system created by us, schools were apart from the pyramid, the experiences being solitary. Questioner, I didn't quite understand what you meant by that. Could you tell me more of what you are talking about? Ra, I am Ra. This is a wide subject. Please restate for specificity. Questioner, did you mean that teachers from your vibration or density were manifest in the Queen's chamber to teach those initiates? Or did you mean something else? Ra, I am Ra. In our system experiences in the Queen's chamber position were solitary. In Atlantis and in South America teachers shared the pyramid experiences. Questioner, how did this learning process take place, learning or teaching, in the pyramid? Ra, I am Ra. How does teach learning and learn teaching ever take place? Questioner, the dangerous pyramid shape for use today would be a four-sided pyramid that was large enough to create the king's chamber effect. Is that statement correct? Ra, I am Ra. This statement is correct with the additional understanding that the 76 degrees apex angle is that characteristic of the powerful shape. Questioner, then I am assuming that we should not use a pyramid of 76 degrees at the apex angle under any circumstances. Is that correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is at your discretion. Questioner, I will restate the question. I am assuming then that it might be dangerous to use a 76 degrees angle pyramid, and I will ask what angle less than 76 degrees would be roughly the first angle that would not produce this dangerous effect? Ra, I am Ra. Your assumption is correct. The lesser angle may be any angle less than 70 degrees. Questioner, thank you. I want to go on with more questioning on the pyramid, but I want to ask a question that name has here. I'll throw it in at this point. Could you please expand on the concept of spacetime and time-space and how to get past this concept and what density level? Do these concepts no longer affect the individual? Ra, I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. This instrument has some vital energy left. However, we become concerned with the increasing distortions of the body complex towards pain. The spacetime and time-space concepts are those concepts describing as mathematically as possible the relationships of your illusion, that which is seen to that which is unseen. These descriptive terms are clumsy. They, however, suffice for this work. In the experiences of the mystical search for unity, these need never be considered, for they are but part of an illusory system. The seeker seeks the one. The one is to be sought, as we have said, by the balanced and self-accepting self-aware, both of its apparent distortions and its total perfection. Resting in this balanced awareness, the entity then opens the self to the universe which it is. The light energy of all things may then be attracted by this intense seeking, and wherever the inner seeking meets the attracted cosmic prana, realization of the one takes place. The purpose of clearing each energy center is to allow that meeting place to occur at the indigo ray vibration, thus making contact with intelligent infinity and dissolving all illusions. Service to others is automatic at the released energy generated by this state of consciousness. The spacetime and time-space distinctions, as you understand them, do not hold sway except in third density. However, fourth, fifth, and to some extent, sixth, work within some system of polarized spacetime and time-space. The calculation necessary to move from one system to another through the dimensions are somewhat difficult. Therefore, we have the most difficulty sharing numerical concepts with you and take this opportunity to repeat our request, that you monitor our numbers and query any that seem questionable.
Okay, I have to stop just for a second because what Ra was just talking about is extremely important. and they kind of just skipped over it. It gets mentioned a little bit more in the books in the future and a little bit more in the past, but it's really important. Like when Ra is talking and trying to explain time space. Now, notice that he says time space and not time and space, and that's very purposeful. And he's also talking about how time space affects the densities and what the significance of time space means in third, fourth, fifth, and he said to somewhat sixth density. Now let's break this down a little bit. We can do a bit of an exercise when we talk about time space. So wherever you are right now listening to this video, whether you're like on the couch, on your laptop, or on your phone somewhere, I want you to kind of think about where you are right now at this very second. You're in whatever city, you know that you're on Earth, but really think about where on the Earth you are, and then start thinking about where the sun is right now. And is it nighttime? Is it daytime? It's like, oh, it's nighttime. The sun is on the other side of the Earth right now. We're facing away from it. Now you think about where the moon is, where Mars is, where all the planets are all configured all around you, and start kind of like going further and further and further. And Pluto is over there. Now start looking at the constellations. We're in Aries season right now. So where's the constellation Aries? You go back even more and look at all the details that you can see in the stars' constellations. Where are the comets at? Was one on its way in, about to circle the sun and then go out into space, never seen again? If you actually look at absolutely the dance of the cosmos that we're in right now and the space that you are right now, it will never be configured the way it is right now. Doesn't matter if you speed up time or go backwards in time, and as the planets start spinning around, they'll never line up perfectly to where they are right now. There will always be something different. The Earth is going to wobble a little bit. That planet's going to wobble. That star blew up a long time ago. It's no longer there. So when Ross says time space, it is unique. It only ever happens once. So when he always says to the group, in your time space, it's that particular time in that particular space is completely unique. And we get affected by everything that's all around us, no matter how far away it is. This is a very unique time space. And he also talks about how time space changes as we go through the densities. Now, in third density, where we are right now, we experience linear time, and we can see the space that we're in, and we're just in it. We're in our bodies fully. We are heavy into our bodies at this time. We only experience linear time in this density. So it's really hard to see how we can fall out of it. And the examples that I can give you are like in the fourth density, we're going to be able to start to do things like it'll be commonplace to start astro traveling, and be able to go out of our bodies and start to go to different parts of dimensions and galaxies with our thoughts. And I'm not talking about dreaming. I'm talking about actually doing that. I have done it a couple times, and it's interesting. It's weird. It's weird that you get lost in your own neighborhood because you can't navigate. It's not like you have your phone with Google Maps. Now, in fifth density, you not only can start to, astral travel, but you can actually go to different timelines. And he said somewhat in sixth density, because in sixth density, you can completely circumvent time, space. And let me give you an example of that. There's a guy I know, his name is Jean-Claude. He lives in Canada, and he's a powerful psychic, very intuitive. He had a near-death experience when he was a child, and it really made his intuition and psychic abilities really powerful. Now, when he was older and in college, he was a photographer. Like, he did weddings, putting himself through school. And there was this one wedding that he couldn't shake the feeling that he had to be the photographer for this wedding. But he kept on not wanting to do it. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to concentrate on school, but he couldn't shake the absolute push from spirit to do this wedding. And he's like, and finally he kind of gave up. He's like, all right, I'll do the wedding, Like, Spirit, stop bothering me. I get it. I'll do the wedding. And he says that when you do weddings, there's this thing that all photographers do, which is just follow the bride. Because if you follow the bride, you're going to capture all the moments of the wedding. You'll have a good album and, they'll be happy. But during this particular wedding, he kept finding himself following the groom all the time. And he ended up having a huge amount of pictures of the groom because he kept on leaving the bride to go to the groom. And back then, it was negatives that you had to develop, and it took a long time. So a few weeks later, the bride came around for the pictures, and this was really sad. She really wanted a lot of pictures of the groom because the groom, right after the honeymoon, had died. And the pictures of the wedding were the only pictures that she could have of him and them together. That was really good. And Jean-Claude was like, oh, that's why Spirit wanted me to do this wedding. And so he went to kind of his spirit guides. Is like, you knew he was going to die, and that's why you had me do this wedding. And his spirit guides were like, oh, no, it wasn't us. It was him. It was the groom that got you to do the wedding. Like, remember, your higher self right now is in sixth density. As we experience, and we're kind of snaked in and pierced into third density here. But in sixth density, you can circumvent time and space. So the groom's higher self in sixth density went to that particular time and space to go to Jean-Claude to get him to do this wedding, because in sixth density, you could see the timeline that he was on and he was going to die. And this gives you a really good example about how this changes, time space changes when you're in sixth density, right? And sorry, this story is a bit sad, but it really does illustrate how this can be done and how we can actually witness it here in our third density reality that we are in. Anyway, I wanted to just stop this because I think it's really important when Ra talks about time space and how you can really capture what that means, and also an examples of how the densities affect time space. So let's get back into it. Here's another session. I believe we're going to be heading into session 58 with the Law of One material.
The Law of One, Book 3, Session 58, June 16th, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Questioner, would you please give me an indication of the instrument's condition? Ra, I am Ra. This condition is as previously noted, except that the physical distortions mentioned have somewhat increased. Questioner, could you tell me the cause of the increase of the physical distortions? Ra, I am Ra. Physical distortions of this nature are begun, as we have said, due to overactivity of weak, as you call this distortion, portions of the body complex. The worsening is due to the nature of the distortion itself, which you call arthritis. Once begun, the distortion will unpredictably remain and unpredictably worsen or lessen. Questioner, we have tried healing with the diamond crystal. I have tried both using the crystal around my neck and dangling it from a chain held in my right hand. I think that possibly that to do the best work on the wrist, I should dangle the crystal just below my right hand, from a distance of just a centimeter or two, holding it directly above the wrist. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This would be appropriate if you were practiced at your healing art. To work with a powerful crystal, such as you have, while unable to perceive the magnetic flux of the subtle bodies, is perhaps the same as recommending that the beginner, with saw and nail, create the Vatican. There is great art in the use of the swung crystal. At this point in your development, you would do well to work with the unpowerful crystals in ascertaining not only the physical major energy centers, but also the physical secondary and tertiary energy centers, and then begin to find the corresponding subtle body energy centers. In this way, you may activate your own inner vision. Questioner, what type of crystal should be used for that? Ra, I am Ra. You may use any dangling weight of symmetrical form. For your purpose is not to disturb or manipulate these energy centers, but merely to locate them, and become aware of what they feel like when in a balanced state and when in an unbalanced or blocked state. Questioner, am I correct in assuming that what I am to do is to dangle a weight approximately 2 feet below my hand and place it over the body, and when the weight starts moving in a clockwise rotational direction it would indicate an unblocked energy center? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. The measurement from hand to weight is unimportant and at your discretion. The circular motion shows an unblocked energy center. However, some entities are polarized the reverse of others and, therefore, it is well to test the form of normal energy spirals before beginning the procedure. Questioner, how would you test? Raw, I am raw. Test is done by first holding the weight over your own hand and observing your particular configuration. Then using the other self's hand, repeat the procedure. Questioner, in the case of the instrument, we are concerned with the healing of the wrists and hands. Would I then test the energy center of the instrument's wrist area? Is this correct? Raw, I am raw. We have given you general information regarding this form of healing and have explicated the instrument's condition. There is a line beyond which information is an intrusion upon the law of confusion. Questioner, I would like to trace the energy patterns and what is actually happening in these patterns and flow of energy in a couple of instances. I would first take the pyramid shape and trace the energy that is focused somehow by this shape. I will make a statement and let you correct it. I think that the pyramid can be in any orientation and provide some focusing of spiraling energy, but the greatest focusing of it occurs when one side of it is precisely parallel to magnetic north. Is this correct? Raw, I am raw. This is substantially correct with one addition. If one corner is oriented to the magnetic north, the energy will be enhanced in its focus also. Questioner, do you mean that if I drew a line through two opposite corners of the pyramid at the base and aimed that at magnetic north, that would be precisely 45 degrees out of the orientation of one side aimed at magnetic north, that it would work just as well? Is that what you are saying? Raw, I am raw. It would work much better than if the pyramid shape were quite unaligned. It would not work quite as efficiently as the aforementioned configuration. Questioner, would the pyramid shape work just as well right side up as upside down with respect to the surface of the Earth, assuming the magnetic alignment was the same in both cases? Raw, I am raw. We do not penetrate your query. The reversed shape of the pyramid reverses the effects of the pyramid. Further, it is difficult to build such a structure, point down. Perhaps we have misinterpreted your query. Questioner, I use this question only to understand the way the pyramid focuses light, not for the purpose of using one. I was just saying if we did build a pyramid point down, would it focus at the Queen's chamber position or just below it the same way as if it were point up? Raw, I am raw. It would only work thusly if an entity's polarity were, for some reason, reversed. Questioner, then the lines of spiraling light energy, do they originate from a position towards the center of the Earth and radiate outward from that point? Raw, I am raw. The pyramid shape is a collector which draws the in-streaming energy from what you would term the bottom or base, and allows this energy to spiral upward in a line with the apex of this shape. This is also true if a pyramid shape is upended. The energy is not Earth energy, as we understand your question, but is light energy which is omnipresent. Questioner, does it matter if the pyramid is solid or is made of four thin sides, or is there a difference in effect between those two makes? Raw, I am raw. As an energy collector, the shape itself is the only requirement. From the standpoint of the practical needs of your body complexes, if one is to house oneself in such a shape, it is well that this shape be solid-sided in order to avoid being inundated by outer stimuli. Questioner, then if I just used a wire frame that was 4 pieces of wire joined at the apex running down to the base, and the pyramid were totally open, this would do the same thing to the spiraling light energy? Is this correct? Raw, I am raw. The concept of the frame as equal to the solid form is correct. However, there are many metals not recommended for use in pyramid shapes designed to aid the meditative process. Those that are recommended are, in your system of barter, what you call expensive. The wood or other natural materials, or the man-made plastic rods will also be of service. Questioner, why is the spiraling light focused by something as open and simple as 4 wooden rods joined at an apex angle? Raw, I am raw. If you pictured light in the metaphysical sense as water and the pyramid shape as a funnel, this concept might become self-evident. Questioner, thank you. I do not wish to get into subject matter of no importance. I had assumed that questions about the pyramid were desired by you due to the fact that some danger was involved to some who had misused the pyramid, etc. I am trying to understand the way light works and am trying to get a grasp of how everything works together. And I was hoping that questions on the pyramid would help me understand the third distortion, which is light. As I understand it, the pyramid shape acts as a funnel increasing the density of energy so that the individual may have a greater intensity of actually the third distortion. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. In general, this is correct. Questioner, then the pure crystalline shape, such as the diamond, you mentioned as being frozen light. It seems that this third density physical manifestation of light is somehow a window or focusing mechanism for the third distortion, in a general sense. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is basically correct. However, it may be noted that only the will of the crystallized entity may cause interdimensional light to flow through this material. The more regularized the entity, and the more regularized the crystal, the more profound the effect. Questioner, there are many people who are now bending metal, doing other things like that by mentally requesting this happen. What is happening in that case? Ra, I am Ra. That which occurs in this instance may be likened to the influence of the second spiral of light in a pyramid being used by an entity. As this second spiral ends at the apex, the light may be likened unto a laser beam in the metaphysical sense, and when intelligently directed may cause bending, not only in the pyramid. But this is the type of energy which is tapped into by those capable of this focusing of the upward spiraling light. This is made possible through contact in indigo ray with intelligent energy. Questioner, why are these people able to do this? They seem to have no training, they are just able to do it. Ra, I am Ra. They remember the disciplines necessary for this activity which is merely useful upon other true color, vibratory experiential nexi. Questioner, then you are saying that this wouldn't be useful in our present density. Will it be useful in fourth density on this planet in the very near future? Ra, I am Ra. The end of such energy focusing is to build, not to destroy, and it does become quite useful as, shall we say, an alternative to third density building methods. Questioner, is it also used for healing? Ra, I am Ra. No. Questioner, is there any advantage in attempting to develop these characteristics or in being able to bend metal, etc.? What I am trying to say is, are these characteristics a signpost of the development of an entity, or is it merely something else? For instance, as an entity develops through his indigo, would a signpost of his development be this bending ability? Ra, I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. Let us specify the three spirals of light energy which the pyramid exemplifies. Firstly, the fundamental spiral which is used for study and for healing. Second, the spiral to the apex which is used for building. Thirdly, the spiral spreading from the apex which is used for energizing. Contact with indigo ray need not necessarily show itself in any certain gift or guidepost, as you have said. There are some whose indigo energy is that of pure being and never is manifested, yet all are aware of such an entity's progress. Others may teach or share in many ways contact with intelligent energy. Others continue in unmanifested form, seeking intelligent infinity. Thus the manifestation is lesser signpost than that which is sensed or intuited about a mind-body-spirit complex. This violet ray beingness is far more indicative of true self. Are there any brief queries or small matters we may clear up, if we can, before we leave this instrument? Questioner, I did have a question on what you meant by the third spiral, and if that is too long I would just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable, or to improve the contact. Ra, I am Ra. We may answer briefly. You may query in more detail if you deem it desirable at another session. If you picture the candle flame, you may see the third spiral. This instrument is well balanced. The accoutrements are aligned well. You are conscientious. I leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
And that is the end of part 4 of book 3. And I like these last two sessions. And I did talk quite a bit before these sessions started, and I did have an intermission. So I'm not going to say too much more at the end here, just that I really love how we have a good understanding about how these pyramids were built now and how they were used, and how they were built with thought, and how we're going to be able to use the power of our thought more and more as we go into fourth density, which will just be a lot of fun the way we can play with it and start to practice it now that we know and have learned that it does have an effect on our reality. So be sure to leave me your questions in the comments, because I am cataloging them, and I'm starting to do the consciousness series, trying to teach on how our thoughts do affect our reality and looking at the scientific practices of that. But we'll end this here, and I will see you guys in part 5 of book 3, The Law of One Raw Material. Thanks for listening, guys.